All right, welcome back to Cole's Farm, everybody. It's October 23rd. It's 1:30 in the afternoon. Currently in Jacksonville, North Carolina, it's 72 degrees and 50% humidity. The WeatherBug app has the pollen at a 2.1 out of 10. The last inspection I conducted was September 23rd. The hives were looking just fine. They're definitely enjoying this warmer day in the fall. Today I'll be checking for the food stores, pulling out the division board feeders, which take up 2 deep frames, adding those deep frames in, of course, and then adding candy boards. So last year I added a candy board to each hive consisting of 15 pounds of hard sugar, the rock candy or whatever, and then I had 10 pounds left over. So this year I'm adding 10 pounds of hard candy per hive, and the whole goal to that, I posted something earlier on social media. 2 things happen. One, it provides emergency food source for the bees, because they can't get out when it's cold. They stay clustered, and whatever food is in the hive, that's what they have to survive over the winter. And then the second part is the sugar is supposed to absorb any sort of moisture, because as some of you may know or may not know, any moisture in the hive during the winter can kill a colony rather quickly. So that's what I'll be doing today. We'll pop the top on hive number 1, move into 2 and then 3, see how everything's looking, and wrap it up. I'd have to look back at the videos myself, but I added this top box on hive number 1 because it did look kind of crowded down in the bottom box, but just peeking in there briefly, it really doesn't look like they've drawn too much out, which was kind of expected. So I'm going to move through the frames rather quickly, and if it doesn't look like the queen and the colony has started to move to the top box, I'm probably just going to remove that box today. I mean, as you can see, they started to draw out some comb on the bottom there, but nothing really worthwhile or worth keeping. That's another thing with winter. Too much space in a hive is not necessarily a good thing. So I'm gonna remove that box, pull out the division board feeder, put 2 frames in there, and see how the rest of the colony works or looks. But first, like I should have did to begin with, I'm gonna put on this headband, keep the hair out of my face. Much better. Okay. Yeah, that thing is bone dry, as expected. Oh, something that I read on another guy that keeps bees out in the middle of the state. His Instagram name is Honey on Whales, so he had something pretty interesting posted. So when you initially take off the cover, something to pay attention to on the top bar is where the bees are gathered. Supposedly, just because I haven't really paid attention or bothered looking at this myself, but supposedly that's a good indication of where the queen's at. So it's just something to, I guess, keep in mind. Alright, so this is what's known as frame number 1, and because they had extra bee space, because of the division board feeder, you can see they built out further from the frame. They've drawn the comb out further. So that'll get kind of squished up when I add the other 2 frames, but it's no big deal. Frame number 2, I'm drawing it out nicely, small little patch of cap brood. It's got some weight to it. It's got a pretty nice honey store or food store at the top. Some cap brood down there in the center of the frame towards the bottom. Oh yeah, hopefully everybody can hear me better. I finally got around to buying a frame for the GoPro, so the camera is no longer behind the waterproof frame, so hopefully that improves on the audio quality without a microphone. Alright, well this is pretty interesting on frame 3. Obviously you can see the queen cell to the right of center, and then right below that at about 7 o'clock, what looks like a queen cell that may have hatched, but that's kind of odd because it's not really swarm season or anything like that. And that queen cell doesn't look like it has an egg or any larva in it. So I'm just going to let that be and keep an eye on it, make a note of it, and maybe by springtime they will have filled that with a new queen and I can make an artificial split from this. Frame 4, good looking brood pattern, nice stored capped honey at the top, some pretty fat drones moving around. They may not know this or not, but their time's getting kind of short here with the colder weather. If any of you don't know, all the drones get the boot come the winter. They actually get kicked out of the hive because they are no longer needed. Frame number 5, same thing, nice honey band at the top, which is on the bottom right here. A lot of capped brood, which is always nice to see because these will be the winter bees. Unlike the spring and summertime bees, the winter bees live up to 4 to 5 months, they say. I might have that wrong, maybe it's 3 to 4 months. Anyway, it's a lot longer than the spring and summertime bees that live only 6 weeks because they actually work themselves to death. The reason the winter bees live longer is because they don't have to work as hard. They're not flying out to the field to forage and collect food and everything. They stay in the hive and basically keep the queen and the colony alive by clustering and really depend on whatever food is available inside the hive. There are some bees bringing in some nice pollen, which is always a good sign. Backside of frame 6, capped honey again, some spotty brood pattern. But on this side, it's another decent looking queen cell. Kind of makes me wonder what's going on. Maybe they're just preparing for the fall, it's always hard to tell. Got some bees bringing in pollen. And we got some spun larvae. It's hard to see right now with just how the sun is in the sky. It's hard to get enough light to see down in the cells in order to check for eggs, because the likelihood of spotting the queen, at least for me, is rather difficult. Yeah, this frame definitely has some weight to it. See a lot of stored nectar, capped honey, some good looking brood. And some of these colonies, to include this one, the queen has been known to hang out on the far left of the colony, like frames 7 through 10, unlike the textbook brood pattern of being in the direct middle of the box. Alright, 20 minutes, it's about average. Take a quick look at the candy board and all the commotion. The bees were calm, surprisingly. They're still calm. They're just well aware of somebody was poking around their house. So that's the candy board. That's what 10 pounds of candy looks like. Last year, 15 pounds filled up the whole candy board, and I made basically an exhaust on the back and front just so air could circulate. But this year, as you can see, the bees can get to it a lot quicker, or easier, I guess. Simple, just use wax paper. I think that's about a 1/2 inch hole in the front. But yeah, that's what a candy board looks like. And then of course you want to flip over your summer cover so the opening's facing down, and then pull the outer cover back. I'm not going to strap them down just yet. I'm just going to give them a while to settle down and everything, and then we'll get into hive number 2 here. I'm going to turn the camera off and we'll come back, give it about 5 minutes, and just let hive number 1 kind of calm down. Alright, we're back. I got hive number 1 strapped down, candy boards on, and the bees have calmed down for the most part, so let's pop the top on hive number 2 and see how things are looking. Alright, so before I start messing with them and invading their home, this is what a relatively calm looking colony looks like. So last inspection, I was checkerboarding the new frames and old frames. Obviously these two got butted up back to back, but as you can see, old, new, you get it. Just to encourage the bees to start drawing out some comb on the new frames, and if you can see in there, we'll get in there shortly, it looks like there's some new drawn comb on this new frame, so that's always good to see. This colony, I will leave the top box on there. It looks like, I mean, just from looking at it that quickly, it looks like things are okay, and I'll add the candy board to the top box, but we'll go frame by frame and see how things are looking. Judging by the discoloration of the wood, this frame doesn't look too terribly old, but it's one of the older frames just because they have it mostly drawn out. So this coming spring of 2019, this will be a great either food store location or very nicely developed cells for the queen to lay eggs in. Now this frame looks a lot newer than the other one, and most likely it is. And you can see how much of the drawn comb, or how much of the comb they've drawn out compared to the black foundation. So that's what newer comb looks like. And as you see, as we go through this hive, the older comb is really dark and everything. But this, like when you have new comb on new foundation, and the queen's laying eggs in here, I mean, they pop out very vividly. It makes it very easy to find. This just looks like it has some pollen in the center there, and on this side, some stored nectar. And something interesting about that last frame is it is directly, or it's located directly above the 1 gallon division board feeder. So I wonder if that has anything to do with how quickly the bees drew out the comb on that, considering it's directly above the food source. And those 1 gallon feeders hold 4.75, so 4 3/4 pounds of sugar. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. So I believe that's 9.5 cups of water, and they work rather well. They are advertised as taking up one frame, but in fact they take up 2 frames. There's a bee with some pollen, always a good sign. And then we have frame number 4 moving further away from the division board feeder, practically in the middle of the box. And as you can see, they don't have as much comb drawn out on this, so I wonder if there's a direct relationship between where the division board feeder is located and the bees drawing out new comb. This is very nice. I want to say it's capped brood. I usually don't have a hard time telling, but with how light the cappings are, yeah, it should be brood. Got myself, well, questioning myself. Let's see if we can find some eggs. Oh yeah, oh wow. So this section over to the left side of the frame, basically to the right of where all that cap root is, all those open cells have eggs in them. Like every single one. So the bees right now are really just trying to backfill those cells with nectar and pollen, or bees bread as they call it, to provide all those eggs a food source. I'm probably not going to get in the hives at all, considering it's late October, but this should be a solid frame of brood in a few weeks, and those will be the winter bees for this colony. This is probably the most different looking frame I've come across in the last year and a half. So no drawn comb on most of the frame, and then the little bit of drawn comb there is, the queen has laid some eggs in them, and then the workers, and you know, the colony has gone through, fed them and capped them. So I wonder why they're not drawing out the comb on the majority of this frame except these 2 small sections. But I can't really complain because the 2 small sections they've gone through and done exactly what they need to do and capped them. Bring that last frame over here. That thing had to be at least a solid 10 pounds of nothing but stored nectar, which they'll cure and turn into capped honey. And then this frame, the side of this frame, a lot of new comb. So I imagine the sugar water I'm feeding them to draw out the comb and store for nectar and honey food stores over the winter, I guess those sources are working because they're drawing out these combs nicely. And like I said, that last one is pretty heavy. Some nice looking cap brood and pollen stores on this frame. I mean, judging by that one frame in the top box and then seeing the bees bringing in pollen, the queen's definitely laying eggs. See, this frame has darker brood on it, or I'm sorry, darker comb, which makes it just that much harder to see down in the cells. Plus, with it being now overcast, doesn't make it any easier. Well, for the interest of time, I wasn't going to go frame by frame. I think I did the first 5 or so, or first 4. Everything looks great, especially after seeing that one frame packed full of eggs. So I'm just going to add the 2 deep frames that are going to take the place of the division board feeder, put the top box back on, put the candy board on, and close it up. And then kind of a neat trick, you can either use an entrance reducer, or you can use, I believe this is a 1x2, something like that. You can use something like this, slide it under the back of the hive, and it gives it just that much more of a downward degree angle. So if it does rain, you don't have to worry about the rain sitting on your bottom board if you have a solid bottom board. Obviously, if you have a screen bottom board, it's not really an issue. All right, off to hive number 3. All right, hive number 2 is all strapped down, got the candy board on. Let's pop the top on hive number 3 and see how things are looking. I really need to get around to fixing frame number 1 and 2 of the top box. They're older frames. The top bar is held in with little nails instead of staples. so every time I go to pull on them, they slowly fall apart a little more. But this is frame 3. Quite a nice looking capped honey. It's got some weight to it. This is frame number 4. Kind of a interesting thing to see. All the bees with their faces down in the cells, presumably filling it with nectar, but kind of an interesting picture. Frame number 5 looking very nice, right in the center of the top box. It's got some nice looking cap brood. Like I've said before, these will be all the winter bees when they hatch here in about a week or so. So this colony's looking pretty good. Six, 7, and 8 all have nice capped pollen just like this. Looking for some eggs, pretty hard to find. And there's the queen, right there. Right there, let's see if we can see her lay an egg. She does stand out like a sore thumb when you actually get to see her. And surprisingly, she wasn't plowing through all the bees, but yeah, sure enough. Right there, queen spotting. How cool is that? Finally found her. I think I've spotted the queen very, very few times on my own. Less times this year just because I haven't been here that much, but how neat was that? Frame number 8. And frame number 9's falling apart, so I'm gonna repair that quickly and move down to the bottom box. Some viewers may be asking, why am I going to look at the bottom box if I just found the queen? Well, mainly just because I want to. But yes, if you spot the queen or find 1, 2, 3 day old eggs, it's really not necessary to continue your inspection unless you really just want to. So I just want to take a look at the bottom box since it's been a month. I need to grab the division board feeder anyway out of there and put the 2 deep frames in it. So I'm just going to move quickly, see how the food stores look, but I'm not going to be checking for eggs or the queen because I already found her. And that box definitely has some weight to it. I feel like if you don't have to grunt when you pick up a deep, it's light. If you're grunting when you pick it up, it's probably got some significant weight to it, which is an excellent sign this time of year. It means they have enough food stored away to most likely survive the winter. But that off chance that it's not enough food, that's why I give them the candy boards.
Okay.
All right, not too shabby. That was awesome finding the queen. That doesn't happen too terribly often, so always a good thing. That colony looks great. Nice brood, nice stored food between nectar and honey and everything. Added the candy board, added the 1x2 or whatever to give it just enough pitch in case it does rain. This is a solid bottom board. Hive number 2, I believe, has a screen bottom board, and hive 1 is a solid bottom board. What I'm getting at is hive number 2, I'll have to remember to basically close up the screen bottom board, otherwise they'll freeze to death. So awesome inspection. It's been unusually quiet. As I say that, there's some aircraft flying overhead. So thanks for watching. If you see me do anything funky or weird, or have any tips or tricks like I usually say, please leave them in the comments, and I'll be sure to look at them. So thanks for watching Cole's Farm. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Cole's Farm NC for North Carolina. Also, our Facebook page is growing more and more each day, and I created a group called the Backyard Bee, Urban and Unafraid. So it's a closed group. You have to request access. There's a few screening questions, like, you know, if you're a beekeeper, how many hives you have, stuff like that. Please feel free to answer them. I'm just kind of curious of who my audience is or who the members of the page are. You do not have to be a beekeeper to join the page. Just have a passion for bees, I guess. So check it out if you want to. I'll post this video as soon as I can, share it on both Instagram and Facebook. And next step in our brand building is to get more YouTube subscribers. Right now I believe we have 27, so that means I'll need 73 to get to 100 in order to unlock some more features on YouTube that'll hopefully make the channel that much better. So a little bit long-winded, but I'm not making too many videos these days. Again, thanks for watching Cole's Farm, and see you in the spring.